The first light of dawn filtered through the acacia trees of the Ranthambore Wildlife Sanctuary. In a secluded rocky outcrop within the breeding enclosure, a magnificent lioness had just delivered 4 cubs during the night. This was her second litter, born in the carefully managed environment designed to support the endangered Asiatic lion population. The golden cubs with their soft fur and distinctive dark spots typical of newborns huddled against their mother's warm belly. The lioness methodically cleaned each cub, her rough tongue stimulating their circulation and removing birth fluids. When she reached the 3rd cub, her movement slowed. This male cub was noticeably smaller than his siblings, his breathing shallow and labored. As she examined him more closely, she discovered a soft bulge in his lower abdomen, a congenital umbilical hernia that made his tiny body appear distended and vulnerable. Even in the protected environment of Ranthambore, nature's harsh realities persisted. The lioness's amber eyes reflected an ancient wisdom about survival and the difficult choices that lay ahead. During the first 10 days, the lioness devoted herself entirely to her litter. She consumed the supplemental meat provided by the sanctuary staff and hunted small prey within her designated territory to maintain her milk production. The 3 healthy cubs thrived, growing stronger and more active each day. However, the smallest cub struggled. He nursed less frequently, often crying weakly when his siblings' playful movements accidentally pressed against his swollen belly. While his brothers tumbled and wrestled near the den entrance, the weakest cub remained curled in the shadows, his large eyes watching but his body too fragile to participate. The lioness faced the eternal maternal dilemma: how much energy to invest in a cub whose survival seemed increasingly unlikely. One sweltering afternoon, as the heat shimmered across the sanctuary, the lioness detected a familiar but dangerous scent carried on the wind. A male leopard had crossed from the adjacent territory, his territorial markings growing stronger by the hour. Unlike the social structure of lion prides, male leopards were solitary and fiercely territorial, known to eliminate cubs of competing species to reduce future competition for prey. The threat was immediate and real. The lioness rose abruptly, her muscles tense with decision. She had minutes, perhaps less, before the leopard would locate her den. Without hesitation, she grasped her largest cub by the scruff and bounded toward a secondary den site she had prepared weeks earlier. One by one, she transported each healthy cub to safety, her powerful legs carrying her swiftly across the rocky terrain. With 3 cubs secured, she paused at the entrance to the new den, her sides heaving from exertion. The leopard's sawing cough echoed closer now, a sound that sent chills through every prey animal within hearing distance. The lioness looked back toward her original den where her smallest cub lay alone, too weak to even lift his head at the sound of approaching danger. In that moment, millions of years of evolutionary programming collided with the immediate demands of survival. To save 3 cubs, she had to abandon one. With a final, pained glance toward the rocky outcrop, the lioness disappeared into the security of the new den, leaving her weakest cub to face whatever fate awaited him. The tiny lion cub lay motionless in the abandoned den, his breathing rapid and shallow. The leopard's scent grew stronger, accompanied by the soft pad of approaching paws. Too weak to stand, too small to flee, the cub could only wait as darkness fell across the sanctuary. Hours passed like eternities. Hunger gnawed at the cub's empty stomach, while the cool night air chilled his small body. The sounds of the sanctuary at night, the distant roar of his mother calling her remaining cubs, the haunting call of peacocks, the rustle of unseen creatures, created a symphony of loneliness around the abandoned cub. As dawn approached, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, the cub still clung to life. His weak mewling occasionally broke the silence, though no answering call came from his mother. Dehydration and hunger were taking their toll on his already compromised system. Not far from the abandoned den, a sleek female leopard moved through her territory with practiced silence. Her name among the researchers was Chitra, recognizable by the distinctive rosette patterns across her golden coat. 3 weeks prior, she had given birth to twin cubs, hidden in a secure cave system deeper in the Rocky Hills. Unlike lions, leopards were solitary parents, with females bearing the entire responsibility of raising their young. This morning, Chitra was returning from a successful hunt. She had taken down a spotted deer and cached the carcass in a tree near her cub's den. The scent of the kill still lingered on her fur as she moved through the early morning landscape, alert for any threats to her territory or offspring. Her path took her past the rocky outcrop where the lion cub lay dying. A complex array of scents assaulted her sensitive nose, the lingering trace of the lioness, the smell of birth fluids, and underneath it all, the unmistakable scent of a young, vulnerable creature in distress. Chitra froze, every muscle taut with predatory awareness. Her initial instinct was to investigate potential prey, but something else stirred within her, a recognition that transcended species boundaries. The sound that reached her ears was not the bleat of injured prey, but the desperate cry of an infant. Cautiously, she approached the den entrance. What she found defied every expectation. A tiny golden cub, barely 3 weeks old, lay curled in the shadows. His spots, prominent in newborns, were remarkably similar to the rosettes that adorned her own cubs. The cub's weak cries, his posture of desperate need, triggered something deeper than hunting instinct. The lion cub sensed her presence and tensed, preparing for death. But instead of the swift strike he expected, he felt the warm rasp of a tongue across his fur. Chitra began grooming the cub with the same methodical care she showed her own offspring, cleaning away the accumulated dirt and stimulating his sluggish circulation. The cub's plaintive cries, so similar to those of her own cubs when hungry, seemed to activate powerful maternal programming. Despite millions of years of evolutionary separation, despite the natural antagonism between their species, Chitra found herself responding to universal signals of infant distress. Animal behaviorists would later theorize that the combination of factors, the cub's spotted coat resembling her own offspring, his cries mimicking those of leopard cubs, and her own elevated hormone levels from recent motherhood, had created the perfect conditions for cross-species maternal recognition. After what seemed like hours of gentle grooming, Chitra made an extraordinary decision. She carefully grasped the lion cub by the scruff, her powerful jaws gentle but secure, and began the journey to her own den. The cub, weak from hunger and exhaustion, offered no resistance. The walk through the rocky terrain was slow and careful. Chitra paused frequently to rest and adjust her grip, ensuring the fragile cub remained unharmed. Her own cubs would be growing hungry, but instinct now drove her to expand her family by one. When Chitra entered her cave den carrying the golden cub, her twin leopard cubs, spotted and sleek like their mother, approached with curious interest. At 3 weeks old, they were more developed than their new sibling, already beginning to explore their surroundings with typical feline curiosity. Chitra gently placed the lion cub among her own offspring. The leopard cubs sniffed their new companion, their natural curiosity overcoming any sense of difference. To them, he was simply another cub, slightly different in appearance but clearly part of their mother's brood. The lion cub, overwhelmed by warmth and the presence of other young cats, gradually relaxed. When Chitra lay down and called her cubs to nurse, the lion cub instinctively joined them. For the first time in days, he felt the warm flow of life-sustaining milk, his desperate hunger finally beginning to ease. Researchers monitoring the sanctuary through remote cameras captured this remarkable moment. Dr. Priya Sharma, the lead wildlife biologist, made the decision not to intervene immediately. This presents an unprecedented opportunity to observe natural cross-species adoption behavior, she noted in her field journal. We will monitor closely but allow nature to take its course. In the days that followed, an extraordinary family unit took shape in the Ranthambore sanctuary. Chitra treated the lion cub as completely as she did her biological offspring, nursing him, grooming him, and protecting him from potential threats. The cub, though still smaller and bearing the visible signs of his umbilical hernia, began to gain weight and strength. The leopard cubs accepted their adopted brother without question. They played together in the safety of their cave, practiced stalking movements that would serve them well in adulthood, and slept in a warm, spotted pile. The lion cub's golden coat stood out distinctly among the rosette patterns of his siblings, but behavioral differences were minimal. On the flat rocks outside their den, where Chitra often brought her cubs to bask in the morning sun, a remarkable scene regularly unfolded. The 3 cubs would chase each other among the boulder formations, with the lion cub showing surprising agility despite his physical limitations. His natural lion instincts, the tendency to be more social, more willing to engage in group play, blended seamlessly with the solitary hunting skills Chitra was beginning to teach all her cubs. During evening hunts, when Chitra left to secure food for her growing family, she would cache her kills in trees, a distinctly leopard behavior. The lion cub learned to climb with remarkable skill, his natural strength combining with the example set by his leopard siblings. Though the hernia limited his mobility somewhat, he adapted remarkably well to the arboreal lifestyle of his adoptive family. Researchers documented every interaction, fascinated by the behavioral adaptations occurring in real time. The lion cub was learning leopard hunting techniques while retaining his innate social tendencies. His leopard siblings, influenced by his more gregarious nature, showed increased cooperative behavior unusual for their normally solitary species. Dr. Sharma published preliminary observations in the Journal of Wildlife Behavior. The plasticity of maternal behavior and juvenile learning appears to transcend species barriers under specific circumstances. The adopted lion cub demonstrates remarkable behavioral adaptation while retaining species-specific traits. However, the underlying medical condition that had made the cub vulnerable from birth remained a constant concern. The umbilical hernia, while not immediately life-threatening, created ongoing complications. The cub tired more easily than his siblings, occasionally showed signs of digestive distress, and remained smaller than typical for his age. After 6 weeks of life with his leopard family, the lion cub began showing signs of decline. He participated less in climbing activities, spent more time resting, and showed decreased appetite. Chitra seemed to sense these changes, spending extra time grooming him and bringing him choice pieces of meat from her kills. On the 48th day of his life, nearly 4 weeks after his adoption, the lion cub peacefully died in his sleep, surrounded by his leopard family. Post-mortem examination revealed that complications from the congenital umbilical hernia had led to internal infection and organ failure. Chitra's response to her adopted cub's death was profoundly moving. She remained beside his body for nearly 12 hours, periodically licking him and making soft maternal calls. The leopard cubs, confused by their siblings' stillness, continued to nuzzle and play with him until their mother finally led them away. Following natural behavior patterns, Chitra eventually had to abandon the body to hunt for her surviving cubs. Only then did researchers intervene, conducting the examination that confirmed the cause of death and documenting the remarkable physical development the cub had achieved under cross-species care. The story of the golden cub among the spotted leopards captured international attention when Dr. Sharma's full study was published. The phenomenon sparked discussions about the fundamental nature of maternal instinct, the flexibility of animal behavior, and the complex relationships possible between species traditionally viewed as competitors. For the conservation community, this event highlighted the remarkable adaptability of endangered species and reinforced the importance of protecting both Asiatic lions and leopards. The story became a powerful symbol of hope. If natural enemies could transcend their differences to nurture life, what possibilities existed for human conservation efforts? Chitra continued raising her biological cubs, who grew into healthy adults successfully released into the wild. But researchers noted subtle behavioral changes in both cubs. They showed more social tolerance and cooperative behavior than typical for leopards, traits potentially influenced by their brief experience with their adopted lion brother. A memorial marker was placed near the cave where this extraordinary adoption occurred, with a simple inscription. Here in 2023, a leopard mother taught us that love knows no species. In memory of the golden cub who found spots among his stripes. The story resonated far beyond scientific circles. Educational programs worldwide used this example to teach about animal behavior, conservation, and the unexpected connections that can emerge in nature. Children's books were written, documentaries produced, and conservation funding increased as people connected emotionally with the tale of cross-species compassion. Years later, wildlife researchers continued to reference this event in studies of animal behavior and maternal instinct. The phenomenon contributed to evolving understanding of how environmental pressures, hormonal states, and evolutionary programming can interact to produce behaviors that challenge traditional species boundaries. For visitors to Ranthambore, the site became a pilgrimage destination, a place where the impossible had briefly become reality. Tour guides would point out the rocky outcrop where a leopard mother chose love over instinct, proving that in nature's grand tapestry, the threads of compassion can connect even the most unlikely patterns. The short life of the golden cub among spots left an enduring legacy. He demonstrated that survival is not always about the fittest, but sometimes about finding connection across the seemingly impossible divides that separate us. In a world increasingly focused on differences, his story remained a testament to the universal language of care, protection, and love that transcends all boundaries, whether between species in the wild or among the human communities working to preserve them. The golden cub's 48 days of life proved that even in the briefest encounters, profound beauty and meaning can emerge. His legacy lived on in the research he inspired, the conservation efforts he motivated, and the simple truth he embodied, that love, when it appears, recognizes no boundaries and asks no questions about where it lands.